Just No Family brought to you by Reddit Guru. My dad has decided to cancel my wedding. Granted, everything is crazy in the world right now, but my wedding was scheduled for the fall. My dad insisted on paying for it since I got engaged last October, and he insisted that my wedding was perfect. I didn't want anything big or extravagant, but I settled on a nice venue with about 40 to 50 guests. He had me hire a wedding coordinator and told me I needed to hire the best caterer and florist that I could find. I'm not a materialistic person, but he did get me very excited about looking forward to my wedding. I'm his only daughter and his only kid, and he said he wanted the experience to be a good one. Fast forward to today. I received a text from my wedding coordinator, and she told me that she received a request refund from my account. I was very confused. She said the caterer and the venue also received the same notice. I texted my dad, and he didn't tell me why he backed out of paying for everything. He gave me no warning. Instead, he texted me, "I don't care what I did or didn't say about paying for your wedding. Right now, I'm telling you that you aren't going to have this event." My dad has been known in the past to flake out on little things, but I never thought he'd flake out on something this big and important. He makes a pretty good sum of money in his career, but he also has a legitimate fear of losing money. He always told me the only thing he'd ever go out on would be my wedding day. I'm sure this has a lot to do with the current circumstances going on in the world and all of the uncertainties. Regardless, the way he's handled it is very hurtful. He isn't the type of guy you sit down and discuss your feelings with. He has never handled his emotions. He has always resorted to anger and lack of communication. He and I haven't had any arguments or anything come up to make him change his mind so abruptly. I will just have to assume this is based off his fear of being furloughed. He works for a MLB team in our state, and as you know, sports are cancelled. Anyways, 4 of my cousins are all getting married at the end of this year too, and it's so upsetting watching their parents throw them these big weddings after my event was just abruptly cancelled, all because my dad can't communicate with me like an adult if there's an issue. My fiancé and I aren't even that mad about not having a wedding. As long as we get married, we are happy. It's the way my father went about this and got our hopes up that really makes us upset. My family brings body shaming into every single conversation. Trigger warning for fat shaming and eating disorders. My 22F family make comments about bodies in every single conversation that we have. Yesterday, we were having a conversation over Zoom about my extended family, people we haven't seen in a while, and the first thing that my mom and dad comment on is my cousin's weight. They started making fun of him, saying he will eventually be as fat as his dad, and then started talking about another family member who is also overweight. Then my mom showed my dad a meme about fat people who wear yoga pants and they proceeded to laugh about it. For background info, my parents have always been hyper obsessed with food and weight. From the earliest time I can remember, my mom and dad were giving my sister and I baked chips, diet soda, banning us from eating school lunches, or eating at friends' houses, no refined sugars, and there were always comments about our friends' weight such as, "Oh, she's so skinny. She won't be when all that junk food catches up with her in her 30s. These comments were about 6 to 12-year-old kids. My sister and I are now both about 20 pounds overweight, after being underweight a few years ago due to 2 different eating disorders. My sister had anorexia and I would eat 800 calories per day, and had exercise bulimia. It was during our eating disorders that our parents would comment on how good we looked. They didn't know that we had eating disorders during the height of it, but now when we tell them that we did, they say, well, you girls were never that thin, so you didn't have eating disorders. I was medically diagnosed with an ED at 20Y/0 and they continue to tell me that I made it all up to make them seem like bad parents. I'm trying to lose weight now, simply by cutting calories to a healthy 1200 to 1400 per day and eating whole organic foods, but my parents constantly chime in with their backquote advice on how to lose weight. They tell me to do keto, do paleo, do intermittent fasting, etc. I really don't want to go on a diet, because diets are what led to my previous eating disorder. So yesterday, after all of their comments, they could tell I was a little upset, because I went quiet for the rest of the conversation. Instead of apologizing, they proceeded to call me overly sensitive and said, "Well, we don't see you as that fat. We were talking about other fat people." Sort of a backhanded compliment. Oh, you're not that fat. I think talking about people in general is rude, and I don't want to be associated with it. I told them this, and they told me that it's their house and they can talk about whatever they want when they are inside it. Luckily I don't live with them, and thankfully I'll be moving out of the city soon, but their comments are really damaging to my sister and I. When I visit them, I can feel them looking at my body and judging every part of me. I feel like my whole life, my worth has been chalked up to how much fat I have on my body. I can feel myself spiraling into a darker place, and I'm not sure where to go. I have my sister to talk to, but sometimes it doesn't help, because we're both depressed about the same issues. How do you all deal with body shaming? Am I overreacting to the things they have said and done? My family doesn't care that I don't like to be touched. Trigger warning because I'm talking about being assaulted. TLC loved but not needed. I just didn't know what else to put. Edit. Typus. 4 years ago a rumor spread I, 16F, was fucking my best friend, 15 meters. At the time we were both 12 and didn't even know what sex was. People thought this boy was a god for fucking me, because if I'm being honest, when I was 12 I had a nice ass and loved to wear leggings. Again, if I didn't make it clear earlier, we didn't have sex. I wasn't very lucky and the girls in my class called me a slut and a group of boys took that as an invitation to grab my ass, grab my boobs, unhook my bra, shove their hands down my pants, try to corner me, and shove me into the boys' bathroom probably to rape me. They got really close a few times. I tried telling my teacher what was going on, and he put one of these boys in front of me and another one behind me. So every day in class I was facing one boy and another one had his hands in my pants all the time. After around a year they would start to kick me and punch me to get me not to tell anyone. At this point only my parents and sisters and 3 of my really close friends knew about what was going on. My family said that it was my fault because I dressed like a slut. After this started I wore jeans and hoodies to school every day. My friends are all a couple years older than me. When I was 12 they were 15 to 16, and every day they'd walk me home from school and take me to their houses and let me cry to them for hours. They lived down the street from me, and my parents never noticed when I wasn't there, so it was okay that I was there all the time. This went on for 3 years. In that time I've grown very sensitive to being touched, and I'm only comfortable with my grandma, those 3 girls, and my other best friend touching me. My family all knows what happened to me, except for my grandma, only because she doesn't speak much English, and I don't speak enough Arabic to tell her, and knowing how much I hate to be touched they still get very physical with me. They grab slap my ass, jokingly hid my face, practically lay on top of me, and call it cuddling. I stopped growing when I was 12 due to ulcerative colitis, and I'm 4 feet 9 inches and around 75 pounds and my sisters are both over 5. So they act like they can do whatever they want to me and it triggers panic attacks and I just don't know what to do anymore. The story of my just no father. First time posting here. English is not my first language. I put ambivalent because it's handled via no contact, but I'm not opposed to advice as to how to handle the grief and mixed feeling that come with this story. I think I'm mainly writing this because I hope that it's kind of therapeutical to get everything off my chest and share it with people who will understand. This is gonna be long. My mom conceived me by tricking my father. They were together and she wanted a baby from him because of his genetics she says, but was only 22 and not ready for that. She was 27 and already had my older sister. She didn't want us too far apart. So she told him she was taking the pill, but stopped taking it secretly. No doubt that was a shitty move, but can't really complain about that I guess. She got pregnant and told him, and as you can imagine he was pretty shocked. He immediately wanted them to get married, because that's how he was raised. She told him he doesn't have to do this. She was the one who tricked him, and if he didn't want to be a dad that would be fine. She was prepared to be a single mother. He decided he didn't want to a father yet and left. She kept her word and never put him on the birth. certificate or went after him for child support. I remember talking to him on the phone when I was 4 and my mother says he visited us once after we moved from Germany to the Netherlands when I was 2, 5. Other than that we didn't have contact until I was 12. I told my mom I would really like to have contact with my dad, so she contacted him and asked if her will be okay with that. He said he would love to, so he visited us for the first time when I was 12. At 18 I had seen him only a handful of times, despite him claiming he would really like for us to build a relationship. However, I had to be the one to initiate contact every single time. But still I wanted him to be proud of me. I was desperate for him to recognize me as his daughter. I wanted to meet my family, but he made excuses. He never straight up told me I couldn't meet them, just always found a reason why it's not a good time. Apparently he hadn't told his family about me until I was 13 and had been in contact for a good year. He got married without telling me. I found out on FB, even though we were in contact. Same with their first child. I found out on FB 3 days after our last meetup, which was also the last time I saw him, even though I had specifically asked him at that meetup if I had any siblings I didn't know about, or if they wanted kids, because I loved the thought of a little sibling. He said no. She was 5 months pregnant at this point. I later asked him why he hadn't told me when I asked him, and he said they had been having a couple of miscarriages and didn't want to tell anyone too early. I honestly didn't, and still don't despite having a miscarriage of my own. Understand what difference 3 days would make, but I didn't tell him that. A few days later he told me my family said they don't want to meet me after I asked about them again. I was so hurt. One night, admittedly a bit drunk, I reached out to my uncle/his brother who lived in the States. I'm from Germany, on FB, in a try to figure out why they didn't want to meet me. The next morning I woke up to a message from him and another from his American wife. They were ecstatic I had reached out to them. They said they had asked him so many times to meet me. He had straight up lied to me. We, uncle and I, messaged back and forth a lot and got along great. My father was pissed, especially at my uncle, but there wasn't much he could do without looking like a total asshole. He told he wanted us to ask him for permission to have contact, and that he's disappointed we didn't. I lost it. I was 19 and had never showed any interest in me and lied straight to my face. I told him all that and then told him to just never contact me again. A few months later I went to visit my uncle for the first time in the States. At some point his wife told me my visit had caused a huge fight between my father and my uncle. My father had demanded after our conversation that they cut contact with me, and my uncle basically told him to get fucked. I'm family and he loves me. He didn't want me to know this because he didn't want me to feel guilty, but his wife thought I deserved to know. She also told me about all the lies my father had spread about me after I had asked her if there was anything else I should know. He had told his family my mother and me were only after his money, not that he was rich or anything, that my mother has denied him contact to me when I was little, and that he wanted to have contact with me all this time and be a father, but my mom had vanished and he couldn't find me. I guess he was scared his family would be mad about his decision to leave my mother and told this as a way to get out of it. It was awful to hear, but also very liberating. I reached out to him again before my wedding thinking maybe we could start over. He ignored me. I reached out again when I was pregnant. He ignored me again. His wife contacted me and told me she was sorry he acted that way, but he has made it clear to her that he never wanted contact with me again. She also told me they had another child, so I now had 2 baby brothers that I would never get to meet. It hurt very much. When my uncle got married again last year, he and his American wife divorced. My father said he wouldn't come if I was invited. My uncle chose me over him, which I'm very thankful for, but still feel guilty about. The rest of my/his family at the wedding pretended not to know who I was because they chose to believe the lies my father told about me. Even after all these things happened and all the times he hurt me, I'm still sad sometimes. I still wonder what I did that made him hate me so much, even though I know it's not my fault. I'm still angry sometimes. I gave out way more chances than he deserved. I've come to terms with it and ultimately realized me and my son are better off without him. I'm sad he won't have a grandfather in his life, since we're NC with my Phil too, but he has an amazing dad who would do everything for him. If you have read through all of this, thank you. It was actually really therapeutical, just as I hoped it would be.